So today's session, we're here for the session on resource coordination for emergency preparedness, and so I am very happy to welcome all of you here today. But before we get into it, I just want to take a moment to just to acknowledge that we are meeting on Indigenous land, and it's important to take a moment to really think about that and the settlers, that recognition and contributions of historic importance of Indigenous peoples must be clearly and overtly connected to our commitment to collective action to make the truth and reconciliation real in our communities. And as part of our commitment to kind of this truth and reconciliation process here at Tamarack, we recognize that the importance of land recognition is just as one small way out of many other things that we can do to honor and demonstrate the respect for the diverse histories and cultures of all Indigenous peoples. And as for myself, I'm joining you today from traditional territory of the Beothuk people, which is now known as Newfoundland. And just in terms of technical considerations, this session is being recorded, so don't worry, we will share this afterwards. And if you'd like to join the call, the chat, share comments, you can just use the chat box. And if you have any trouble with technology or anything is not working, please reach out to my colleague Connor, who is also on the call with us here today. And Connor is supporting me with sharing links and so on. So there we go. So let's get into it. I also we always do in our rounds here, we do a bit of a check-in with everybody, and not in the chat box, but actually off, on camera, and we'll come off mute. So I'm actually going to just stop the sharing for a second so that I can see you all. So we just invite you all, let's just go around about, just say who you are, which organization you're from, what brings you here. So we just get to know each other a little bit, because that's actually quite a fun part of these communities of practice, what we've started doing. So I will ask my colleague Connor to kick us off.
Thanks, Astrid, and hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're dialing in from. Thanks for being here. My name is Connor Judge, and like Astrid said, I'm a manager of cities at the Communities Building Belonging Project. I'm located in Tekaronto, which is colonially known as Toronto, which is Treaty 13 territory. And I'm really excited to kind of just listen to this call. So it's a really great turnout today. So thanks for being here on a beautiful August day. And so what we like to do at Tamarack is we'd like to just kind of pass it to someone, and I can try to be in the background, keeping track of everyone. But I'd love to have our speakers introduce themselves. So Scott, I'm going to pass it to you.
Great. Thanks, Connor. I'm Scott Cameron. My pronouns are he, him. I'm coming to you from Calgary, and I'm one of the co-founders of Emergency Management Logistics Canada. And I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Pauline.
Hi, hello everyone. Pleasure to be here. I'm Pauline Musso. I'm one of the co-founders of Emergency Management Logistics Canada. And it's been a while since I've engaged in any Tamarack-related workshop or webinar. And so I'm excited to be part of this. And I'm from Red Deer, Alberta. And certainly I am excited to be here with everyone. And thank you so much.
Thanks, Pauline. Who would you like to pass it on to?
How about Audrey Lazat, please?
Hello, everyone. My name is Audrey. I work for United We East Ontario. I am responsible for the community of Prescott Russell, which is between Ottawa and Montreal. And I'm here to listen, to get more information, because I'm also the responsible for the crisis portfolio. So that's why I'm here.
Thanks, Audrey. Who do you want to pass it on to?
I'm going to pass it on to Henriette.
Hello, everyone. My name is Henriette Thompson, and I'm joining you from the city of Waterloo, which is on the Haldimand Tract, traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples, and in the Grand River watershed, land of the Six Nations of the Grand River. I'm a founding member and coordinator with Faith Climate Justice Waterloo Region, and so always looking for ways in which to engage faith communities of all kinds in terms of emergency response and trying to create a sense of what is the practice that we already have that we can bring to the table. Thank you. Oh, I'd like to pass it on to Corey.
Thanks so much, Henriette.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Corey. I work as the climate change coordinator for the County of Haliburton. And this is my first Tamarack meeting webinar, so I'm excited to be here today.
Welcome, Corey. Who would you want to pass it on to?
I will pass it along to Jessica.
Hi, I'm Jessica Harris, and I'm with the City of Toronto Emergency Management, so Treaty 13 territory as well. Part of what we are working on is expanding our community engagement portfolio. So I'm here to listen and learn.
Beautiful. Thanks so much for joining. Who would you like to pass it on to?
I will pass it on to Evelina.
Hi, everyone. I'm Evelina Bogdan. I'm an assistant professor at York University in the Disaster and Emergency Management program. And York University is located on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and it's subject to the Dish with One Spoon, Wampum Belt Covenant. And I'll pass it on to Jen.
Thanks, Evelina.
Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're joining from. I'm Jennifer Bromley, and I am an emergency management coordinator with the region of Durham. And I am also here to listen and learn. I'm starting to look at some business continuity practices, and like many others, I'm sure we're often finding ourselves looking to figure out how we can collaborate and join up resources and have a centralized resource database. So I'm hopeful to get some great information to take back to our team later on today. And I will pass it off to, is it Taya?
Taya, yeah. Thanks. Thanks
Yep,
so much,
that's
Jen.
me.
Thanks, Jen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Taya. I am from Climate West. I'm the network coordinator, and we do climate adaptation work. And so emergency management is a part of that. Yeah, so really happy to be here today. I've really been enjoying being a part of this group. And I'm joining from Treaty 4 territory in the city colonially known as Regina. Thanks, everyone.
Amazing. Thanks so much for being here, Taya. Who would you like to pass it on to?
I'll pass it on to Katrina.
Thank you. So I'm joining in from the unceded traditional territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people, also known as Ottawa, and I'm a nursing project officer with Ottawa Public Health. We have been really focusing on health equity and lately kind of thinking about how we can, through our emergency management activities, influence health equity in a positive way. And I've been engaging with communities to do some community development and community level emergency preparedness. So I felt like this session was really apt for that work. So thank you for allowing me to join. And I'm just looking for a name that hasn't been called yet. Scott, have you been called yet?
I have not. Morning, everyone.
Thanks.
My name is Scott Zayak. I do work with two nonprofits in the Burns Lake area, British Columbia, on the people of the Wet'suwet'en, Nedutan, and Dakal people are the traditional territory owners. Our nonprofits, one is the Chinook Emergency Response Society, which deals directly with preparing and responding to emergencies, and the other is called the Link, and we work with people living in poverty, and we all probably know that disasters tend to impact people living in poverty greater than other people. So this is a really important topic for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here, Scott, and also sharing that equity perspective. It's really, really important. And who else? So Sue has shared her introduction via Connor. Thanks. Hi, Sue. So we have a few more people left. Scott, who would you like to pass it on to?
Pass it on to Hilda.
I'm in the city of Toronto, and with the Beth, I'm the screening committee chair of it, and in our mandate is emergency preparedness.
Thank you, Hilda, so much. Nice to see you again. Who would you like to pass it on to?
Who has not been called?
We have Sepia, we have Cheryl, Manira, and
Cheryl.
Jay Jesso.
I pass it on to Cheryl.
Okay. Cheryl, you're on.
Thank you, Hilda. My name is Cheryl Evans. I'm the Director of Flood and Wildfire Resilience at the Intact Center on Climate Adaptation. We're located at the University of Waterloo, which is located on the traditional territories of the Six Nations of the Grand River, the Haudenosaunee, Wendat people. We at the Intact Center, we focus a lot on risk reduction. But we've been drawn into projects over time with organizations like Red Cross, Fire Smart Canada. So they don't just touch on risk reduction, they also touch on emergency response and recovery. So one of the things that I'm really most interested in doing is getting some more insights about how community members can be empowered to, raise awareness and work together to reduce risk. And we do research work as well with looking at barriers to insurance for those most vulnerable Canadians who would also really benefit from having access to insurance to help them with recovery. So I'm just here to do a lot of learning and trying to gather some more community perspectives. Thank you. I'm going to pass it to, wait.
Connor shared in the chat as well that people haven't been yet. So thank you so much, Cheryl, by the way.
Okay, thank you.
So I think we have, Connor shared the list. We have Ian, Amy, and so on. So
there's Munira, I don't believe has been.
Yeah, and Munira too. Yeah.
Thanks, Cheryl. Hi, everyone. My name is Manira Mohammed, and I work with the Canadian Red Cross as their mental health and psychosocial support specialist, working with the BC and Yukon Territory region in the Friendly Calls program. And as everyone here, I'm here to listen and learn, and also to see how we can support with community engagement. That's one thing I'm trying to focus more on over the next few months. And also preparing the participants we pair up with the volunteers in our program to maintain and sustain resiliency through getting to the next step of their journey with whatever resource they're looking for and beyond.
Thank you so much.
I will pass it along to Kelly.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, folks out west. My name is Kelly. I'm calling in from Halifax, otherwise known as Shabuktuk in Mi'kmaq, known as the Great Harbor, and representing a small nonprofit I organize called Reimagining Atlantic Harbors for 2050. Really happy to be here. And I'm going to pass it on to Amy.
Thank you so much, Kelly.
Thank you.
Hi, and I still have someone from Atlantic Canada. Go ahead, Amy.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Amy. I'm a community developer here in Ottawa on the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe peoples. And I'd love to bring some information back to our post-incident protocol network. So we're trying to be more prepared for emergencies and incidents that happen in the community. So, thank you. And,
thanks for being here, Amy.
Sepia?
Hi, good morning, everyone. So my name is Sepia Sharma, and I am working as a community health specialist with Fraser Health, which is based in BC. So I'm calling in as a settler today from traditional lands of 5 nations, Katzie, Semiahmoo, Kwantlen, Kwikwetlem, and Tsawwassen First Nations. And my role essentially covers anything to do with population health, And so extreme weather and climate response would be part of that. Thank you. And I'm going to, I think Jay Jesso I'm not sure if Jay Jesso has gone.
Yeah, totally. Thanks so much, Steph. Yeah, nice to see you again as well.
Thank you.
Jay Jesso, I don't know, are you able to come off mute if you like to share?
That's Jackie from the Red Cross as well. I'll send her a message to see if she's probably got disconnected or something. I'll follow up.
Okay, no problem. So who else do we have that we haven't had a chance to Ian?
I'll jump in. Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Ian Marcuse. This is my first meeting with you guys, so happy to be here. I am calling in from the unceded and stolen lands of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples in so-called Vancouver. I wear kind of two hats here. My paid work is in the area of food justice. I coordinate the Vancouver Neighborhood Food Network. So we're a coalition of 15 place-based food justice organizations in Vancouver. But my main focus here with you guys is my work through co-ops. I live in a co-op. I am involved in many, many co-ops, but we happen to live amongst a cluster of 5 co-ops within a 5-block radius. So these co-ops, these housing co-ops, are all organizing to develop emergency and resilience plan to work together in a mutual aid model. So that's me. I will pass it on to Pauline. Oh no, Pauline's gone already. Is there anyone else left?
I think we had Setkin
Christina's autopilot.
Yeah, so we have, I think so we have Setkin who joined us, and so Jackie, we're not sure if
Setkin.
Oh, okay.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Etkin. I am with the Treaty 13 territory. I am with the Toronto Emergency Management team, and I work within the Emergency Social Services portfolio, and here to listen and learn with my colleague, Jessica Harris.
Amazing, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for being here. And I guess, so I don't know if Jackie is able to come on or not. And have we missed anybody else? Just want to make sure that we haven't. Please, if you have, please come off mute and introduce yourself. No? Okay. All right. Well, this is really wonderful. I feel like we should all have a coffee together or something, but we don't have time for that today. But it's really wonderful to see all of people from so many different sectors and across Turtle Island today. And feel free to use the chat box to exchange information, email, connect, and so on. Absolutely. And so just to say as well, because we have lots of new people here today too. So for those of you for whom Tamarack, it's new today. So, you know, we are an organization that works on community development with hundreds of communities across Canada and helping to end poverty, supporting youth futures, building belonging, and on climate transitions. And so I wanted to then jump us back into our subjects of today, and let me just get our the screen share going again. Oh, hang on a minute. What am I doing here? Let me see. Oh, all right. Share screen. All right. Perfect. So just have to bear with me a little bit. Yeah, so so far what our learning journey has been about has really about thinking about, well, so what do we know, and really from community perspective, what is it that we know, what do we know, the knowledge and tools to survive that already inherently exists in the communities. What do we have? The social infrastructure, the connectedness between the peoples, the communities built in natural environments, and so on. And what can we do together as communities? And then the next step from that will be, well, what do we need the outside help for in case of an emergency, but also as we're preparing in the sense of emergency management. And I also wanted to share with you that, so in our last session, we had really special guests from an organization called Preparing Our Home, and it's an organization based in British Columbia. And they work with Indigenous youth to enable them to become emergency preparedness leaders in their communities. So I invite you to check out their website. It's quite incredible the work they do. They work with about 90 Indigenous communities across Turtle Island. Connor will share with you as well the link to the recording if you'd like to check it out. The link is not actually publicly available on our Community of Practice website. The previous other sessions are. It's because this was based on the agreement that we have with them, that we would really want to only share this with the kind of like the engaged community of this learning space. And because there's a community stories that are being shared and there's youth there, so it's not sort of out there in the public in that way, but we still wanted to share with you here today. So that is available, but otherwise you feel free to check out our Community of Practice website page where you can sign up and you can share it with others, and there's recordings and documentations and resources to sessions that we've had in the past. And then, so what was really important about sessions that we had with Preparing Our Home folks is that, what they really kind of honed in was the fact that, the emergency preparedness, it starts with what you know. It starts with the knowledge inherent in the communities. It starts with our home. And it's knowledge also about the past. It's about knowledge about the present and about the future. So think about, and that also goes for things about like identifying hazards and thinking about, events that have happened in the past, but also the knowledge to how to survive and say drying meat or cleaning fish and all kinds of things. And we also learned really with them that, and what we wanted to sort of highlight is the fact that, plans and protocols are just one part of the emergency preparedness planning process. And assets and hazard mapping, training, education, networks, collaboration, and partnerships, these are all key parts of the whole community approach. And this is really something that I really wanted to talk about today before I hand it over to Scott. And actually, young people are incredibly well placed in the community to do this work. Like when you check the recording and look at their work to see what the young people in communities can do, it is incredible. And really, the community resilience is a journey that involves the whole community. And they shared examples from 3 Indigenous communities about their national gathering. They did community mapping in Stanley Mission. They did hazard mapping in Siska Nation and asset mapping in the Lilbet Nation. So what we also spoke about was actually something really important that Scott mentioned is as well, thinking about like who is impacted the most. So also thinking about how can we really actually decolonize the emergency preparedness, and just to kind of help bring you to reflect and think about like how our systems often when we design them, are in mind for people that are able to buy to-go kits, who have a car, can book themselves into a hotel, can afford to buy air conditioners if there's a heat wave, and so on. And we know that Indigenous people are 3 times more likely to be impacted by emergencies related to climate, living in areas that are not well connected, quite often are prone to more climate impacts. And also thinking about things like, well, who has access to air quality and emergency alerts, and not everybody does. So I'm also thinking here about seniors and areas where we have poor cell coverage and internet coverage. So when we think about emergency preparedness, we really need to be focus more than ever on bringing in the equity lens, and think, what is the most equitable and just way really to plan this, thinking about also the things that are culturally appropriate from foods and so on, and really think about everybody's needs. So and thinking like, how can we think about like the social connectedness of neighbors and others in the community. So so Connor's probably, I shared the link already, so I just wanted to share this. So just think of this as something that as well that you can take with you from the session today. These ingredients of a whole community approach to think about of the knowledge, the tools, the skills. These are all assets in the community. The process of asset mapping, but also the process of hazard mapping. So much of it actually is the preparedness, right? And it's cheaper to prepare than to respond to something. Education networks, partnerships, and collaboration. And the last but not least, what I just mentioned, the social connectedness in the community. And then before I hand it over to Scott, I wanted to share with you as well, we have, well, actually, I put this together, but I was inspired by the work of Zita Cobb and Shawfast in Fogo Island. And it's one way you can also do asset mapping in community for community resilience planning. So just think about the slide that I showed you before of the things that are listed here. So we ask these questions, and we actually, this is very universal to any kind of community development work that we do with the communities that we coach, is ask these questions. What do we have? What do we know? What do we love? What do we miss? And what can we do about it together? So, the knowledge and the tools to survive, and all of these things that we have, and all of the things, and just trying to, so this could be a great way and a very simple and straightforward way, which is easily kind of universal to most people to understand. And it's much more kind of straightforward than kind of like typical asset maps to use in community. So Connor will also share the link to it, and feel free to we have members that use it to make lists as they work with communities and just list the question. And then as you sit down and you have conversations with people, then you start off with one list and then you add to it. And you will soon know, what you're sort of looking at. Cheryl, I think you have your hand up.
Thank you. Maybe you can just clarify what that means. What do we miss? Is it something that we've lost and we want to restore, or what is it that we're lacking that we need to protect ourselves better? What does that question ask? Right.
So in the emergency preparedness lens, or the community resilience lens, I would say, what is it? Yeah. So what is it in the community that we need outside help with? So are there any assistance with resources? Could it be that we don't have enough ways out of our community? Is it that we don't have enough emergency water resources? Is that, and it could be actually as a part of in our daily lives. Sometimes there are other chronic issues or situations in the community. So I would kind of look at things, what we miss. Maybe it is that, hey, we are not as well connected in the community. That is something that is a like an issue or a concern. So this is again, but all of this is community driven things that are identified. But yeah, in this context, it would be things that kind of the community would identify as. This could also be, it could be the risk, but also what do we know? This could kind of fall into that as well. But this is really the part of what is it that we need kind of outside help with, or find some kind of solution to, and then moving on to, well, what can we do about all these things? Knowing what we have, knowing what we know, what is the knowledge that we have, and knowing the things that are very dear to us in our community. Does that help?
Sure. So it can be flexible depending on what comes from the community. Is that right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's good. Thank you.
Beautiful. If If anybody else has questions, if you want to just maybe come off mute and ask, because I'm not able to see you because I'm presenting. Does anybody else have any other questions? Okay, sounds good. Okay, so what I will do is, and if anybody has any other questions or wants to talk about this somewhere, feel free to also reach out to me by email, and we can chat about it and kind of have a conversation one-on-one about this work. So I will, though, now with all of this being said, pass this on to Scott. So we're really happy to have Scott Cameron with us today. And Scott will share with us about the platform on Emergency Management Logistics Canada. And really, for us is like, well, how can technology be in service of community? So I will pass this on to Scott. And thank you so much, Scott, for being here.
As I brought my screen back up, everything else disappeared. So my apologies for going quiet on you there for a second.
All good.
So, okay, so let me share my screen and we can walk through the materials that we presented for you today. So, first of all, thank you for having us. Both Pauline and I are longtime Tamarack fans. I was explaining to Astrid and Connor that I think at the CBI, the Community Building Institute, I don't even know, I'm guessing maybe 20 years ago, I had a chance to, of course, follow up with Paul and Mark and be in a pod with Liz. So I've been following and working alongside much of the work of Tamarack for many years. So at that time, I wasn't as gray and probably wouldn't be considered a historian, but here I am many years later. All that to say that when we started looking at emergency management through the lens of community development, Pauline and I came across a platform that we thought, how could we use a platform? How could we use technology to help strengthen relationships, build local capacity, and enhance community resilience? So it really does, that is really what we're striving to achieve by creating the EML Canada platform. I do want to acknowledge the land that we are on. I am located in Calgary, lands of the Tsuut'ina Nations, the Siksika, Blackfoot, and Stoney Nakoda territories, the four nations of the Mesquiches, Ermineskin Nation, Sampson, Louisville, Montana, Treaties 6 and 7, and the ancestral home to the Métis people. And this was important to us because in emergency management, within our existing systems, we see a tremendous breakdown between Indigenous communities and non-Indigenous communities. The notion of using traditional knowledge in emergency management seems to be lost somewhere between jurisdictions. And we all know that fires, floods, tornadoes, they don't really give a crap about jurisdiction, quite honestly. So why are we getting tied up in that? And so in creating EML Canada, we created it with the full intention of working in a good way and learning from and embracing relationships with First Nations people. So a little bit about what we're going to cover today, a little bit about EML Canada, what was the problem we were trying to solve, what is the vision, what's our solution, and what's your opportunity. That picture is me in Wood Buffalo, so I believe that was 2016, a little bit of a surreal moment. I was part of Alberta's Emergency Social Services Network, and as such, we're called and deployed to Wood Buffalo to help our colleagues there. But a very surreal to stand in the middle of a street of a community of bustling 100,000 and knowing you're one of maybe 300 or 400 people left in the community because everybody else has been evacuated. I would say from a community development perspective, my experience in the Slave Lake fires and being deployed to a small community of Smith, Alberta, was probably a much stronger example of the importance of the ESS side of emergency management. So I come to this work from those experiences. Our team, Paulina and I are both here. We're also joined by our, we have another colleague on the business and sales consulting side, Garth. Paulina and Garth are both located in Red Deer. I'm located in Calgary, and we do a lot of Zoom meetings. So we're very comfortable with the platform. And I think the pandemic just helped to improve our access to tools like this. Sorry, I'm just seeing the messages, trying to stay on top of things here. So we've been asking emergency management organizations, and again, these are systems that are set up. Canada's emergency management policy is basically set up to say, wherever the disaster is happening, the local jurisdiction is responsible for that disaster. They can call upon their provincial or territorial resources and or the government of Canada as the situation demands. So our first question, our driving question around the creation of EML Canada was, to what extent do local communities have good access to local resources, knowledge about what resources exist, contact information for those resources, and to what extent do those resources know that they're either on or not on an emergency management organization's list? So when we asked that question, so as of today, the resource list being used by our emergency management organization is 70% said either they don't have one, aka, what resource list, or it's not bad. So that means only 30% of the communities that we've been in touch with have either something that's pretty good or great. That's kind of sad. And it's sad in the sense that they don't have it for themselves, but it's also sad that they don't have it in a form that can be shared with a neighboring community. And as we've been building out EML Canada, we have local communities that are adding a resource, and other communities are going, whoa, wait, I never thought of them, and click and add and click and add, and building their own resource lists. I'm going to pick a couple stories here because, and I'm selecting these ones because of who's in the room today. We were doing a presentation to master's students at York University. So Evelina, this one is for you. And as one of the students was telling us about a previous deployment to Northern Ontario where there was no restaurants, no grocery stores, and his responsibility was to make sure that the 300 people up there were going to be fed. Pauline was listening to the story and typed in on our platform Salvation Army, or just typed in the word food, and the Salvation Army came up with their canteen program. And the student said, wow, I didn't know that Salvation Army did food. I've been involved in emergency management for years, didn't know that they had a canteen program. And what took me 3 days, you did that in 8 seconds. So it's a demonstration of the power of having access to information in terms of timely response. And continuing on that vein, our colleagues at Salvation Army, when they signed up, saw the opportunity of a platform like this in the opposite direction. And so from a faith perspective, when they made the connection that, as we build this platform out in the central Alberta region, we know that there's, 5 church organizations or churches in Red Deer that have huge commercial kitchens. And the light bulb went off and they said, wow, if we were able to check to see what's in the community that we're being deployed to, we can be up and running so much faster. I had no idea that that many churches in Red Deer would have significant commercial kitchens. And so by being able to bring on organizations like churches to the platform and allow them the opportunity to upload photos of their commercial kitchen, identify the things and assets that they have, it makes deployment from the national NGOs to local communities that much smoother. So with that, I just want to reiterate our concept of whole of society, which includes emergency management organizations, and we see those as anyone with a legislated or mandated responsibility for emergency management. So that could be government, First Nations, industry, NGOs. So they're one of our pillars. Business, who have access to supply chains. They have local products and services on hand. So, no longer would we have to have stockpiles of certain things spread out across the country. Those things exist in communities or neighboring communities when we need them. So how do we identify them? And the third being community organizations. We recently had a request for translation services in Central Alberta. And of course, because of our community background, we were like, well, we know who does that. Reach out to them. And, literally an hour later, they were on the platform, being able to be searched and sought out just by typing in the keyword translation. So the whole of society or all of society concept is also supported at the United Nations. So the UN Sendai framework talks about an all of society approach. And I know that the government of Canada, the provinces and territories here in Canada are working towards and trying to figure out what does that mean. And that's in fact one of the topics that, shout out to the Toronto Emergency Management folks that are in the room. We work quite closely with Simon Wells. Simon and I were recently chatting and planning to prepare a presentation on all of society approach. And when the IAM conference on the East Coast was canceled, we instead put together a think tank session in Ottawa, which of course, the report came out just on Tuesday. So all that to be saying, I think we academically or think we know what whole of society and that it's a good thing. We have an idea about what it could be like, but I don't know that we've sort of boiled it down to how do we actually engage the whole of society. And so that becomes part of our guiding mission in terms of what we've created for EML Canada. Sorry, I'm just rattling on. I'm going to try to just pump through a bunch of the slides, being mindful of your time and make sure that we've got room for questions. So really, the platform is a directory-based platform. It's very easy to sign up. If you can create a Facebook profile or a LinkedIn profile, you can easily create a profile on it on EML Canada. It's about accessing products, services, and supports locally, regionally, provincially, nationally, enhancing local economic recovery. So we're tired of watching disasters being replayed on television and local businesses are standing on the outside of the yellow tape, fist pounding, saying, why is that company in there doing this work in my community? And I've got all that equipment sitting there inactive. Plus you've kicked this out of town and we can't even get in. So how do we flip that so that local businesses and resources can be used first and foremost in a disaster? And serve as a stimulus to economic recovery. And then, of course, supporting regional collaboration and cooperation. So we're really excited about what's happening in Central Alberta. Of course, there were already some things happening between communities, but the EML Canada platform is just another mechanism for those things to happen. At one conference, we actually had somebody walk past our table and say, okay, I get it. This is sort of the new memorandum of understanding. This is sort of a new way for communities to collaborate in emergency management. So just a quick, this is a project that we coordinated with the Salvation Army of Canada. These are the communities that jumped on board right away. This is Central Alberta. These are the cities and towns, villages, rural communities that are on the platform and beginning to work together around building out their resource lists. From a business perspective, we've created a marketplace so businesses can actually tell more about the products and services that they have. Everything is searchable on the platform by type, kind, category, subcategory, location, keyword, and we're trying to follow as closely to the Incident Command System or ICS Canada format, although we really don't have a standardized language in Canada yet that we can follow. So we're hoping that a platform like this might actually become a bit of a stimulus for some standardization. Just another look at the marketplace, and it really is as quick as signing up, creating a profile, building out your resource management list, starting with profiles that are already on the platform, and then inviting existing or other local resources. So what's interesting is that when we started this, we thought our primary target was probably going to be emergency management organizations because we know they're doing this work off the corner of their desk. What we're discovering, though, is that chambers of commerce are very interested in this. They know from their COVID experience that trying to maintain community listings of products and services is unwieldy at best. But there's also an entry point that community, local NGOs, neighborhood groups can actually be the catalyst for communities to build out their resource lists on a shared platform like this. So we don't think EMOs are necessarily our number one target. They're an important target, but in terms of building something out locally, we're all about access from a grassroots level. You don't have to wait for your local community or your local municipality to sign up before you do. We've created a full knowledge base so the platform is designed to be very user friendly. We're there to help, but at the same time, you can get through the majority of the work that you want and need to do without even contacting us necessarily. And so here are a number of sites or links on our site. The one that I'll draw your attention to is this one, the Community Preparedness site. And let me just bring that up and see if I can. Is that appearing? It's switched to the platform? Okay, so there's a short video there. I won't play it because sometimes I'm always worried about whether the sound's going to come through or anything else. But what I do want to draw your attention to is this report that just came out on Tuesday. So we were part of, as I said, this think tank session with Public Safety Canada and the Canadian Journal of Emergency Management, and I pulled out this quote that EM practitioners have a responsibility to eliminate an us and them cognitive framing of government and public relations. This can be achieved by securing buy-in for preparedness across diverse communities and stakeholders in partnership with, instead of subordination to governments, and exposing communities to core emergency management philosophies. EM practitioners should think beyond typical academia-based qualifications and involve diverse viewpoints and lived experiences in the national conversation on how to make emergency management better. So I would encourage you, we have the link to this report on our site, and we can share this, the link to this page in the chat. Maybe Pauline, you're able to help us do that. And with that, I'm going to stop talking and be available for any questions.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Scott. So we had actually a couple of comments come through as you were presenting. So Henriette said, as you were thinking about the example about the resources available at churches, so Henriette mentioned that that it's really helpful for you to mention this, but that there's lots of collaboration and coordination that still needs to be done at community level for these for these assets to be discovered in a way, right? And for them to make their way into platforms like the EML platform. And I think we can actually then connect it to as well some of the stuff that I was talking about earlier, is like doing your community asset inventory, doing the asset mapping and doing hazard mapping are like pretty much one of the core starting points for the community. And as you do that, you're actually also doing engagement at the same time, because you're asking for community's input. You're asking the faith organizations, you're asking all the businesses their input, because they have, as you said, they have the resources, they have the knowledge. Like, we're just not using, we don't, we haven't just brought it forward. And then we also had Ian, who asked that would be interesting to hear more about how the community organizations showed up. What did they bring to the effort, and how were the extra resource, and how the efforts were coordinated and in an actual emergency. So I don't know if you can maybe speak to that a little bit.
Sure. So, I mean, this is part of the challenge that we face as an organization, is that we have had to decide what is our, what's our swim lane? What is it that we are doing? Because, being a business of 3 volunteers, essentially, because it hasn't been a very lucrative business to this point. We have to, if our swim lane is about creating a space where communities, organizations, and emergency management and business can find one another, then it's up to the community to try to figure out what does that relationship look like. Part of what's in our swim lane is helping everyone on our platform live up to the one simple principle, which is when everyone assumes responsibility for updating and maintaining their own information, everyone wins. And so that's part of our business, is to make sure that the information that's available on EML Canada is the most current available. And so we have little things like date and timestamps on every profile. So when you log on and you check somebody's profile, you can see when they were on last. Our job is to connect with them on a regular basis and remind them, you have a commitment to emergency management. Have you updated your profile recently? And click here and update. So I think in terms of how the relationships roll out in individual communities, it starts by knowing what those resources are, and that's the space that we're trying to support. Because we know from community development work that the relationship building piece is a mammoth effort, and there's no way as a small business like us that we could assume that responsibility in every community. Does that help, Ian?
Yeah, I guess if I may just to add to that, is certainly there's things that we've done in understanding the sorts of detail in amenities, for example, that really ideally is surfaced through the process, that we can do things on our end to create the forms and the posts and things like that related to profiles and what a community organization may put on there, to make sure it illuminates that well. And so we certainly will work hand in hand with the groups and understanding that. So for example, in the faith community, understanding the sorts of amenities. Do they have child minding? Do they have, again, the commercial kitchens and such? And so I would, echo what Scott is saying. I think that actually the work that's required for this depth and breadth of knowledge, it lives in your domain, really, across the country. And like my heart of hearts would love to see that be part of the process. But again, we're there to support that, not necessarily lead that necessarily.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
And I'll just add, I'm going to put in the chat box. So one of the organizations and groups that we've been working with in BC is the Emergency Planning Secretariat, and they support 31 West Coast Salish communities, and they have a Get Ready Together initiative. Helix Kakai, I believe, is how it's pronounced in Indigenous language. And so I did a bit of a quick tool that they could use to look at those categories that Scott mentioned, that aligns with the logistics framework for ICS Canada. And I'll put that in there, but it gives you a sense of the sorts of categorization that sector uses. And again, it may just spark things that could be added to the tool that you created, Astrid.
Sounds good. Thank you, Pauline. And I see we have a question as well. We'll take this because I know we're sort of out of time now, from Cheryl on how do we strengthen the connection between emergency management organizations and community organization silos. People don't know each other and their frame approaches addressing challenges very different. Very true. And how do we help them speak a common language, and with training help? I would say that like some of the ways, just to as a suggestion for this, is some of the ways we work with supporting communities, and the community work that we do is that it starts with a group, as small as just 2 people, that will form a working group, and they will do some work on brokering some initial partnerships and relationships within a community, bringing some key people together and forming a working group. But then the working group's job is not to put what they know and what they have and all of that and make decisions based on that. Their job is actually to go out into the community and do the community engagement work, and how to engage the community at a wider scale and the different partners, and using some of the asset mapping tools and the community engagement strategies that we also have here at Tamarack, and there are many out there, and it's really, it kind of like, it does have to be kind of led by something, but then it is really the work then of going into the community and so that the community becomes part of that work. So that would be like a way to start that. I know we're like out of time now, and thank you so much as well. If anybody would have other questions for Scott or for us afterwards, feel free to email them through, and we can then share and make connections and answer questions afterwards. And then just one last thing, I just wanted to share in the chat as well. We have a little feedback survey. If you have 60 seconds just to fill that out, just to tell us, if this was helpful for you and this was good, and if there's anything else, and we're always available to reach out as well by email. Thank you so much for being here, and I wish you all the very best of mornings and afternoons wherever you may be, and see you next time. Our next session is on October 6th, and it's on planning.
Thank you for having us, Astrid.
Oh, pleasure. Thank you so much.